Everyone, welcome back to the Mama Genius podcast slash festival. Today, we are going inside the festival, doing all these live podcasts, speaking with all these wonderful speakers. And my next speaker is no exception to that. Her name is Alex, and she is going to talk about morning routines. Actually, it's not routine. She has the same language as me and using the word rituals because it's more than that. It's more about how do we get into our bodies? How do we do these things to actually become something more than just a routine? So we can't wait to dive straight into that in just a moment. And here we go. Welcome to Mama Genius Hub Podcast, where we support moms with big dreams from entrepreneurship to personal aspirations. I'm your host, Michelle Kaiser, and I'm here to help you unlock your potential in all areas of life. Join us as we explore strategies for thriving in motherhood while pursuing the dreams, the key to actually unlocking your genius. Subscribe now and embark on a journey to realize your fullest potential. And here we are back, and I got Alex Leikermoser, who with over 3 decades of unwavering dedication to eco and natural living. She's emerged as a revered Zen guide, interior designer, and modern-day goddess that she is, specializing in empowering women through transformational practices in her toolbox. Alex's health journey began as a means of overcoming her struggles with stress as a student, then burnout as an entrepreneur at 30, chronic fatigue, and battling skin cancer at 50, igniting with a profound understanding of the power of alternative healing. Through her illustrative career spanning over 30 years, she's not only honed in her expertise as cutting-edge creative leader, and applied it to stores, hotels, spas, clothing lines, sculptures, you name it. Art, she has become a beacon of positivity and resilience, inspiring others to overcome their obstacles and embrace the life of vitality and purpose. Oh man, am I excited to have you on stage today, Alex. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here as well. I just love what you are creating and the mission you're on, and I definitely feel aligned with it. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you today.
Well, I'd love to know how the Mama Genius Festival is going for you.
Well, I've been finding like my highlight or my really favorite part is just meeting all these amazing women like that you've curated and brought together, these speakers, and then all the amazing women that are watching it. I'm loving just connecting to people in the chats. And I think that's what I realized yesterday was like, that's what it's really about, is us connecting and dreaming our dreams together and staying open to new possibilities of what's possible when we come together for a greater, bigger cause.
I love that so much. And just the word possibilities and supporting and coming together, because it's really what it really comes down to. And the last podcast that we did with Mitch, and we were talking about like we have similar messaging, but it's getting rid of this idea of competition, because we each have some sort of message in our own voice, no matter how close or similar messaging is. And I just want to instill that even more so as we go through this, because I don't want you to think, well, someone's already doing out there, so I can't do it. That's not true, because no one is going to do it like you, no matter what the messaging is. Even if you say the exact same sentence, everyone says it differently. And so, Alex,
So
I want to go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm like, so true, so true.
But I want to dive right in and go, what is your why behind what you do?
That's kind of an interesting question, because I think I started early on as an entrepreneur, like even before I really knew like about these questions, why. And I was just always driven since I was really young. Like I loved watching your kids and some of the youth speak. And that just reminded me, like, that's just kind of how I always was. I was always curious. I always wanted to learn more. I always wanted to be a part of community and create and go for my dreams. So I think as I, went through university and then launched my, I guess you'd say more your career, my why was really about like transforming spaces initially, like through interior design. But I realized early on that a space is not a static thing. Like unless it's a museum, but or something like that, but even then people are moving through it. So I always was really curious about how are people, as they're interacting in a space or a home. And so I got really interested in the health of the occupants and how like the home is affecting them through the materials, through the colors, through everything, the chemicals, the off gassing. So I think that early on that was my why, is like how can I make an interior even better, not just pretty, but actually have it be healthy, body, mind, spirit. And then through my own health challenges, my why became bigger, because then I really learned that, your health is really important. And I had kind of taken it for granted throughout university and just sort of, pulled all nighters, worked really hard. And I didn't have that balance really. And so that was something I had to learn. And so then that became incorporated into my work, right? It was more a part of it, is like the health piece. So that's why my bigger why today is more about not just creativity and entrepreneurship, but also finding that balance through your what I now like to talk about, my morning rituals. So
I love that too. And it's so funny that you use the word ritual, because like I was like the word habit and stuff, and like it just didn't sit right with me. And so I almost like, but I've left it for a little bit, and like, but you bringing it back into my life, like, yeah, that was it. It was morning rituals, because it was more than just a routine, because it's more about bringing that together. And I'm really trying to hone in and honor that a little bit better. And you are so inspiring that in me. So I'd love to just to dive in what that means for you.
well, I think that, yeah, as you say, like words can be powerful too, right? Like, and if we're just having to do another to-do list, like I find often with health, I'd noticed when I was doing my wellness coaching, is it would be like, oh, like now people would be like, oh, now I just have 5 more things I have to do in the morning. And then I just got to see things differently. I was sort of like, well, what if we don't look at it as a to-do list, but we look at it more as like yeah, something pleasurable, like, and a ritual to me sounds more pleasurable, like it seems more enjoyable, like what lights me up? How do I want to begin my day? And that might be different for me than you, right? And also different times of your life, you need different things and you have different schedules. Like if you have young kids, or you're working on a really big project, or you're going to have to be a little more creative with your morning rituals and what that looks like. So I think it's honoring like and meeting ourselves where we're at, and not forcing these, you know, I must do things, and because this person's doing it, I need to do it. I don't think that there's a one like a cookie cutter, for morning rituals.
I love that so much, because it's so true. It's like you're like, well, that worked for that person, so I need to do that. And then we put these shoulds on ourselves, and that's not. But I love that idea of how you put that we need to something that's more pleasurable, something that lights us up, versus like that routine where it's like, oh well, it's just one more thing I need to make sure I check off. And if I don't check it off in the morning, then my morning's going to be. And that's kind of where I was feeling, was where I was just like putting something more on myself and feeling like, well, if I didn't get this done, then my morning's all messed up. And so, but then at the
Right.
same time, I did my list, and then it got to the point where it's like, well, it was almost like I wanted to break the pattern of it, and that feeling. So then I just stopped doing it. And so like I kind of want to meet a merriment of the two. And I was so inspired that we can have this conversation today, actually.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, yeah, it's sometimes it's harder to like change something than, start all fresh, or, like sometimes I have to just take a break and do nothing, or, and then just feel my way back into it and go like, oh yeah, this feels good. This, you know, like at different times of the year, seasonally, all these things, they all I'm very much about cyclical living and tapping more into your divine feminine wisdom as well. And so when we honor that, then, and we listen to that intuition, then we can sort of really listen to what we need versus what we think we should do, right? And again, like, it can be really simple. It's more, I think, what I've learned through yoga and my meditation practices is that it's more about how we're being. So, like, it could be you making a cup of tea, but it's, are you taking a moment to breathe and really enjoy and sip the tea, or are you like quickly doing it, right? So it could be just one ritual like that, but you're actually being more present. Or it could be that you're making breakfast for your kids, but you're actually like breathing, or you've got some nice music on, or they're having fun making it with you, or you know what I mean? So it becomes, it breaks up the routine and makes it more playful and fun, I think, is the other key word that I'm a really big, you know, like, that's, to me, it's gotta be kind of fun. I mentioned the lighting me up, so I think that's a big part of it too, is and beauty, how can we bring in, might be with some rose petals or on your tea or in your bath, or so it's bringing that beauty and that ritual that doesn't take necessarily extra time, or it's really the intention behind it.
I love that so much. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back for some more how to do this. Attention mompreneurs. Do you feel like you're constantly juggling the responsibilities without a moment to yourself? It's time to pause and reflect with our Mama Genius quiz. Tailored for busy mamas like you, this quiz will help you identify what's blocking your path and inspire you to harness your unique strengths. Transform how you manage life and business, find your rhythm, and ignite your joy. Visit mamageniushub.com today to discover your Mama Genius. And that's mamageniushub.com. And we're back.
All right. I love that. Wow, this is awesome.
We're going the full in with all the bells and whistles from now on, because I was telling Alex before we even got in here, like, this is how we do it, to roll a little bit different and less editing later. And like, I'm like loving my notes right now because I can always come back to them, but doing the takeaways and really just honing in with what you're hearing.
Exactly. And you know what it did for me? It gave me a moment just to pause, to breathe, just sort of like, land back in the moment. And yeah, so it's perfect. I love it.
I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. So we're diving into the more playful and fun, breaking up the routine. So what are some ways, some tips that we should do to make it more ritual, or what are some ideas you have for us to create that?
Well, first of all, what I maybe wanted to reiterate or say was, like, why are you doing the morning ritual, right? Like you were asking me my why about, like, my vision and my why I do what I do. I think that's also an important question. So I think ultimately we're doing it for better health, right? Better health physically, better health mentally, better health spiritually. So then maybe it's breaking, you might want to even break it into those three categories, or sometimes even four. I like to also add the emotional component. So then you could even have maybe four rituals, one for each category. So it could be like something you're doing for your health. Maybe you wake up and you have a glass of warm lemon water or with apple cider vinegar, or whatever, something like that. Maybe for the intellectual, I like to first do the spiritual. So maybe like even if it's breathing for a few breaths, it doesn't have to be a 20-minute meditation or longer. So definitely that prayer or meditative component, I think, and that would fit whatever's in your spiritual growth section that you want to focus on. And then the health, well, we said that. So it could be that, or a smoothie at the end, or, so you can find how you want to weave it in. And then we said spiritual, intellectual.
Mentally.
Intellectual. Yeah, intellectual. I like to read something. So maybe it's a poem, or maybe it's, it could be an article on something you're interested in. Like maybe you have something, or listen to a podcast, or so some way of like inspiring yourself, like, or reading an excerpt in a book or something. Um, and then the emotional um, could also be something around that, or it could be like an affirmation. It could be like journaling, doing your gratitude journal or something around that that would support you emotionally at this time. So, does that kind of make sense?
You know, I love that. And I love how you break it down into the four different categories and then, but giving different options and then just kind of choosing one. And I love the idea how you said earlier where we can work for like in our season. So like this might work for like the summer or something, but then the fall we might want to switch it up a little bit and choose something else for those. Like you don't have to be set into one thing if it's not serving you any longer. I love how you brought that out.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. And then it also gives that variety, because variety is the spice of life. And I find that if we're bored, which often happens, like it just means an opportunity to infuse a new inspiration or change it up a bit. Um, I think I was mentioning when I did the talk, at the Mama Genius Festival, like I did mention like connecting with divine, with spirit or prayer, hydrating and nourishing your body. So that's the physical. That could also be moving your body, going for a walk, doing yoga, doing something, a practice that, and I do count workouts separately from morning rituals, but you can clump it in there if you want. And just waiting to get on your phone and your devices. I think that's the biggest one, is if you can carve out like even that few moments in the morning where you're just really staying present. There is scientific research that talks about the first 30 minutes of your day are the most important. And it really makes sense to me. Like as a yogini, I've always felt like it sets the tone for your day, like how you start it, right? There's that joke, oh, start your day off on the wrong foot. Well, there's something to that, right? When something goes off and then we continue our day that way. And so I think also doing your morning rituals, the other why for me is that I'm filling my cup, I'm getting more centered and grounded. And so then if things do go off throughout my day, I'm usually more able to handle them and stay more calm and centered, and just instead of getting thrown off, easily by situations or people. So that is another big why I feel for why to invest in the morning practice. And oh yeah, one more really big reason, which is like if you have a crisis, like let's say you have a health crisis, a financial, relationship, any of the big areas of life. If you have a morning practice, for me myself, I found that it was really, really like supportive for me to have that way of starting my day so that I could then navigate, when I was dealing with health stuff, or it just gave me almost like a pillar or foundation. And these are really hard things to learn if you are in a crisis. That's another thing that I share with, friends, clients, is now is the time to start. Like there's never going to be a good time. You're never always going to be busy. So why not start now? And even if it's a 5-minute ritual, you're going to have that. And, that's what saved me. Like when I was going through stuff, and sometimes I'd just roll out my yoga mat and do one stretch and maybe cry a bit, or, or physically wasn't able to, but that was okay because I had a place to go. I had that kind of set up for myself.
I love that so much. And I love how ritual can be that foundation because you're right. When you're in a crisis, you can't start these things. But on the other side, when you are in a crisis that you've already put these into place, you have those to fall back on. Same thing with family rituals and things you do to create connection with each other. You always have those things to fall back onto, but when you're not in the right state, you can't create that stuff. So I love how you say now is the best time to just get started and creating that foundation. So when we're human, when life hits the fan and things happen, we have those rituals to fall back onto. It's so vital.
Exactly. And one more thing, like I'm just thinking of all these things as we're chatting. it's kind of popular now. There's a few books I think that mention it now. Some people have mentioned it to me, but I've always been a big believer in this. It's like stacking rituals as well. So let's say while if you're in a time crunch, like which most people are, let's say when you're brushing your teeth, you could take a few deep breaths. You could maybe have an affirmation on your mirror. So you can, or you're in the shower, that's when you could maybe, say a prayer or sing or do something. So maybe writing out the things that you're already having to do when you wake up. And then maybe you could creatively, like, I'm not a multitasker, but I do believe that this is a creative way, and that is better than not doing anything at all. And at least you'd have carved in a bit of that time for yourself.
I love it so much. And actually, as you were talking about the shower, it kind of reminded me of one thing that I do sometimes. A friend had suggested it was that she would, when with the water showering on her, she would shower herself with compassion and self-compassion. And when I was going through my values as growth, grace, and gratitude, so I would use that as to shower myself with grace and to and make that work for you. But you can feel the water and you just sit with that word circulating in your head, whatever word works for you. It could be compassion, could be grace, as long as you're giving yourself some nourishment and giving yourself a little bit of what you give everyone else, giving yourself that self-love and that self-friendship that we so sometimes just ignore.
I really love that. And that's such a creative, again, showing just how we can be creative, right? With our intentions and how we're doing things. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. Oh, that's a really great one. And yeah, and then we mentioned journals, either stream of consciousness or gratitude journal is so powerful. And it really, like, if especially when I was going through, any kinds of challenging times, just focusing on the gratitude of, like, thank you for the sun shining, find little things. And there's also a Japanese word for thank you, arigato, and you could play with it in a different language. Just say arigato for this, arigato. And by the time, a minute or two goes by, you realize how blessed we are and what we do have, instead of focusing on what's going wrong or what's not working. So there's so many tools like that. And maybe that'd be something fun. Maybe people could share a little bit of some of the things they do, because I think it would inspire others. And then, you can kind of weave that into your day, go like, "Ooh, I like that." And I think that's the power of sharing as well, and co-creating, as we get to learn from each other and get inspired to just do things maybe a little differently than what we've been doing.
I love that so much. And actually, right before you said arigato, I was like, that was one of the things I took away from your talk, was just that word. And all of a sudden I forgot almost, but even before you said it, like, I was going to ask, like, if she doesn't mention arigato, I was about to ask you for it. And then it came right out, like, we're all this, like, on the same wavelength when we start to share these ideas. And actually that was something I want to bring up to my kids, which now it's cemented, because I've heard it more than once. And I think sometimes we think, well, I know that already, but you might have the information or the knowledge at one point, but until you're actually implementing it and practicing it, you don't quite have it yet. It's not yours to own or to modify until you're actually doing it. And I think that's the thing with the times when we hear personal development is like, oh, well, I already know how to do that. But the question is, are you actually implementing that? And until you are, then you don't know it.
Yeah, so true. Like, it's easy, yeah, for us to say we know, and these are simple concepts, but as you say, it's the power is in the implementation and in the action of it. And they say it takes 21 days to create a new habit. So I do recommend, even writing it out, I find really helps me, is like step by step. Like, I'm going to wake up, brush my teeth, and I'll do my affirmation, like maybe write them next to each other, then, and just write it step by step until it becomes so second nature. Like, by obviously the end of 21 days, you'll just be waking up and doing it. And then I recommend, like, really to repeat again, like go another 21 until it really becomes part of, like, just second nature.
I love that so much. Something that, again, creating those points of getting our kids out there, doing more, saying more, just like everything we're talking about, creating those rituals, creating those foundations that really inspire others to do the same. And again, that morning circle aspect is another way to create that ritual with your kids and having those conversations. Even this morning, actually, it's funny, the question that's in there is how do you express yourself or say more about yourself? That was actually the question that came up today when I was with my girls, and weren't actually in the circle. We were still getting ready and doing stuff, but we were still having the conversation as we're doing. And Lily was so cute, and she was just like, well, Mom, it's like, because I like steak and my friend doesn't mean I have to stop liking steak. And I was just like, when you put it plain and simple like that, it's really creating those foundation and those rituals that we do together to have those conversations. I feel like that fit perfectly into what we're talking about, creating those things with ourselves and our families and how to do that. And I just love that you came out here and tell us all about the morning part, because it's been so beneficial, Alex.
Thank you. And I love that you woven in the part about, doing things with family and kids and loved ones, because I think that's really important. And I think that especially moms and women tend to be caregivers, or anyone that's a caregiver will also like often put themselves last. So it's really important to have those rituals where you're doing your together, but even just carving out 1 or 2 minutes in the morning for yourself to fill your cup. Like if that's all you can do, that will make a difference long term. So I can't emphasize that enough, because I've done it and I've seen so many women do it, and then by the time you realize it, often it's a lot harder to get back on track, right? So even if it's like, because often people say, well, I have no time. And I'm like, you don't have 1 minute, 2 minutes? And they're like, well, how can I do a morning ritual in 2 minutes? And it's like, you can. So it's all about your intention, right?
It really, really does come to that. And on that note, we're going to get into our final 5 questions with you, Alex. Are you ready?
Okay, I hope so.
What is your favorite podcast, or can't even remember the word right now. My brain one. What is your favorite podcast that helps you grow with running your business, or any tool or book, anything? But I was trying to steer more to podcasting and getting some more podcasts listened to it out there.
No, I do love that. Well, my new favorite podcast is yours. I've been really enjoying your interviews, so I'll definitely say that for sure. And I do love word of mouth. Like that's how you find out about great podcasts, is just like ask people, what are you listening to? What do you like? And so I enjoy doing that, and reading like digital books, and real live books as well, poetry. I can't think of like one specific one that's standing out for me right now. So I'll have to post that one. Other than yours.
Yeah, I'll take it. Well, number 2
Okay.
for you, what do you do for fun that keeps the joy coming?
I definitely love nature, so I feel like that has always been a place I find joy, is just going for a walk out in the forest and just allowing myself to just be transported, by the beauty, and just focusing on the colors and the different leaves and birds. And so that's definitely a place I find a lot of my inspiration for my creativity. Um, and then I would say the other part would be making things with my hands. Like I go through different phases where so that is one of the pieces of my art that I've made. So just being creative with my hands, or cooking, or anything, I find that also is a really nice way to just decompress and get connected to the moment and play.
You put this idea in my head when you were talking of just like the hands and feeling the textures of the things you're doing, and really like honing in on the senses when you are creating. And that just popped into my head all of a sudden. I was like, I have to share that. But thank you for bringing that up. I love your painting back there. And it's really about the creation process of it all and getting us out there. And I love how you putting us into nature God, there's a lot of things I love today about our conversation. Keep saying the word. That's because there's so much
Awesome.
love, so much grateful for.
Yeah.
Which leads us into number 3, which is funny because I actually used the one from Mitch from yesterday that she gave on the last podcast. But for you, I have this question of busyness, right? We always seem to ask each other, "How are you doing?" And you're either answering, "I'm fine," or "I'm busy." Blah blah blah. That seems to be generally a lot of the time. So I want to help like redefine that either for in terms for you re-asking the question differently or how we answer differently. And people have taken it both ways, but I leave it in your ballpark.
Yeah, I find that interesting. It's a good point because we ask like, "How are you?" Right, and we just automatically answer, and then we move on, and we don't often leave like space to really be with the person, like like feel how they are. Like so, for a while I was doing this, and I'm kind of glad you reminded me of it. Maybe it's time to bring it back. Is that I used to when people would ask me, I'd answer, and then I'd say, "And how is your heart today?"
Ooh,
And then
I like.
they'd kind of look at me, and I was like, "Well, it's just an opportunity to come more into our hearts and answer from there. Like, I feel sad, or, actually, I'm really happy today, or grateful, or like it invites more of like the conversation we're having where we're more sharing, our really where we're at. And then if there's time, you don't always have time to go into like unpacking something with someone, but you can say, "Hey, wow, I acknowledge that you're going through that, and I'm here for you. Let me know if there's a way I can support you," or you know and then at least that door's open. It doesn't have to be right in that moment, but I think we get so scared of like, "Oh no, now I've got to deal with whatever, right? This person or whatever I'm dealing with." And I think if that was more normalized, like that we could do that in our workplaces, we could do that in our schools with each other. And I think in a minute you could you could rant, about something and get it off your chest. And then again, could be like a ritual. It could be like a way to start your day.
I agree, and that's why I'm trying to redefine the conversation a little bit. And I have struggled myself. Just it's like so automatic to say, "How are you doing?" Like that's just the first thing out of my mouth, even with practicing this. And so like it's just like really working on acknowledging it, recognizing it. And so like I just love all these different ideas of how to redefine that. But that leads us into number 4, which is how do you define success, and how do you celebrate those successes?
Well, I will definitely say that over the decades, the definition of success has changed for me. When I was younger, I was very driven, and although I was never really about the financial outcome, it was more about being creative and transforming lives. But I feel even now more than ever, it's really about like, I don't even like that word anymore because I feel there's, like, so much expectation and, like yeah, I'd like to create a new word for success, like, something that is more encompassing about, is it fulfilling us body, mind,
Ooh,
spirit? And also, is it contributing to the greater good of, the world? Like, what's the impact? To me, success is more about, like, am I taking care of me and am I taking care of others?
ooh, I love
And and then am I having fun doing it? That's like I think also a thing as my friend calls it, saging, not aging. As we sage, we care less about what other people think and more about like our purpose and just being here on this earth right now as part of transforming each other and co-creating and being part of this big shift of where we can really come back to love and come back to what's important, and
I love
hopefully using technology and all these other tools in a positive way to enhance our lives. They're supposed to be helping us, not taking away from, our quality of life and our ability to have peace and calm.
Oh, I'm hearing the alarms for the thunderstorms. I don't know if so it's distracted me for a minute.
Okay.
But which leads us into number 5, though, talking about creativity and how do we foster that in other people and either inspiring kids to have more genius or inspiring those around us to be more creative and get out of this like headspace.
Well, one thing I've learned is like it's by actually embodying that. So like when, I show up like kind of fun and playful, or you like I was kind of having a bit of a thrown off day and you were all lit up and excited, and then I could quickly shift to meet that vibration, right? So that's how we can help each other, is just when you're feeling that inspiration and joy, share it, and you can be sure that someone else will be inspired by that and pick up on it, and hopefully they can shift their day and get inspired, and then it ripples out, right? It's like it continues. It's beautiful.
I love that so much. I thank you so much for being on here, Alex. It's been such a pleasure. But I'd love for you to tell everyone how they can get a hold of you, and then one final takeaway for the audience.
Okay, great. Yeah, best ways I think right now get a hold of me are just through my websites, Yoga Girl, GURL. So there's the U in there for fun, and .com, and then Alex Leikermoser, my name.com. And I do have social media. It's all on the website there. They can click to stuff if they want to check it out.
And do you have a free gift for anyone?
Yes, actually I do. Right now, it's set up on the homepage of Yoga Girl, GURL.com. They can just click there, register, and they'll get an email with the top 3 mistakes that women make in starting their morning, and then lots of ideas of what they can actually do to shift that. So, yeah, I thought that'd be really helpful
for everyone. What's your final takeaway? What's your final takeaway for everyone? What do you want to leave the audience with?
My final takeaway for everyone is just to have fun, have fun creating and dreaming up here's my takeaway. Create your dream morning, write it out, go really crazy, go totally, and dream big, and then create that, in a fun way for yourself.
Well, thank you so much for being on here. I'm going to put you backstage while I read your takeaway and see if it matches what you were given to us today. So here again, I'm showing my little chicken notes here. But number 1 takeaway from today is honoring and meeting yourself wherever you are at. Remember that words are very powerful, the way we talk to ourselves, something we want to be aware of, but making sure that you're picking things that are pleasurable, that are lighting you up, that you want to start your day with. So that leads us into number 2, to make sure that you take a break and do nothing that feels, see, I can't even read my writing today, nothing that feels my way back. So honoring those seasons and making sure that you're in the situation you need. So it's not that you can't adjust what you choose, as Alex was just actually gave us as our takeaway, was that we can honor where we're at and then make those changes to what we need. And number 3, of course, is making sure that we're playful and fun. We break up the routine. We want to bring more ritual in and bring the beauty back and see the intention behind what we're doing so that we are playful, we're enjoying it, and we're doing the things that speak to number 4, which is, what is your why for doing a morning routine? She gave us some ideas to think about. You might want to define it a little bit yourself, but making sure that you're taking better health physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and figuring out what that means for you. Are you filling your cup? And so one way to do that is to pick something from each one of those categories. So physically, it might be a smoothie or the hot water with lemon, or getting a little bit of movement of yoga, qigong, whatever it is. And then spiritually, it could be meditation, prayer, whatever speaks to you to connect. And then emotionally, it could be affirmations, reading something positive, journaling. And then mentally, doing that reading, that poem, reading a poem, an article, listening to a Mama Genius podcast, any one of those things. And then number 5 takeaway is variety is the spice of life. So when you feel like you're bored, then you can switch it up. You don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over to get things done, and making sure that you're not spending this thinking you have to spend all this time doing it, but you can do a ritual in 1 minute. It is possible. But here's your bonus for you. Is that when you create these rituals, you're creating pillars so that when crises do happen, you have these rituals to fall back upon. But when you're in crisis, you can't create these. You can't build something. So now is the best time to start building and creating those rituals with yourself in the morning, but also incorporating your family into those and figuring out those things. So the morning circle handout, donating 10 Nia, good way to do that as well. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's episode of the Mama Genius Hub podcast. If you found value in our conversation, please share this episode with another mama who might benefit. Sharing helps us build a supportive community and reach out to more mamas like you. After all, it's more fun when we do motherhood together. Until next time, stay motivated and continue to pursue your dreams as you shine in your genius.